Hello, Orca lovers everywhere. I'm Sami Mamarbashi, Communications Director for Global Orcas Partners. Today, I'm here with Steve Byrne, our founder, and we are talking with Marie Mrusczok, founder and president of Orca Guardians, Iceland, about this season's experiences at sea with the orcas. Hello, Marie. Thanks for having a chat with us again today.
Hello, good evening from Iceland. Thank you for having me.
Well, hi again, Marie. It's great to see you, and it's great to have another conversation with you and catch up. Last time was last June when we talked, and that was kind of the middle of your season. You were kind enough to interrupt your season and do a Zoom interview with you, so that was great. And it's still up on YouTube. So, but this year, I just like we just talked a little bit about it. I was talking to you about the orcas that were in Iceland had migrated or moved over to Norway for a while, and you thought they might have been gone, but then I think I saw you with 2 days ago, you started seeing them come back in your direction again. Did you want to talk a little bit what's going on presently?
Yeah, sure. So that was probably one of the big reveals, I would say, in the last time that we had this group of orcas first recorded to go from Iceland to Norway.
Right.
And now that they also came back. So at the beginning, we weren't sure whether this was going to be a one-way movement or this was occurring regularly or anything. We still don't know if it's that regular, but we do know now that it's more or less a round trip because, yeah, they were recorded here in Iceland before, in the south, in the north, and in the west. Then they were recorded on the Norwegian coastline, and now they have been back on the north of Iceland a couple of days ago.
That's amazing. Do you attribute that to anything maybe to do with climate change or some other aspect of the, why would they start doing that now and not 10 or 20 years ago?
Well, I don't know. I mean, probably I would contribute this also to increasing efforts being made around the world, like basically everywhere, you know, where ID catalogs are popping up and more research is being done, like also, you know, more people watching, also efforts from whale watching boats and so on. So, for example, the sighting that we got from Norway was done on board the cruise ship. And so it was actually quite exciting because the photographers or the researchers that worked on board the cruise ship, they sent their pictures into Happy Whale. Right. And then the person at Happy Whale, Emma Luck, she contacted me because she found the orcas from the pictures in Norway in my catalog. And that's so cool. That was quite cool, you know, to just see like how over kind of three corners you can make this match. And just because, yeah, there are people all over the world now that are very into photo ID and into collecting this kind of data.
That's very cool. It's very cool. And the citizen science, that's what we call this, citizen science. And people on a ship like that would be citizen scientists. And
they would be researchers also.
Sure.
Researchers. Those were the guides there on the cruise ship that did that. So yeah.
I think you mentioned that Iceland doesn't have a lot of citizen science, but Scotland and Norway have a little bit more. You know, and so tell people about Happy Whales. That's a place where citizen scientists and other people can post their photographs, correct?
Yeah. So I'm probably not the right person. I'm not a spokesperson for Happy Whale, but they're doing great work. So you can upload pictures there, and then it's an automatic matching system. So I've done it for the humpback whales that we have here in West Iceland, and then I get notifications back when the humpback whales that we see here have been spotted in other areas. And so it's automatically matching the flukes, and it's been done for orcas now, but for orcas, I think it's more manually still done. So
still manually, but I think that, you know, with all the new technology, we're not there yet. Maybe 3 years from now, but I think the fin prints on an orca dorsal fin is called a fin print, and I think eventually with machine learning and AI and generative AI and all the things that are happening, that more and more that's going to be automated as opposed to manual, and it's going to be broader and more people. And I think Happy Whale is just one of several that are being aggregators of this kind of data, which is great. I think there's going to be global aggregation of these photos and the photo IDs and identification. So anyway, that's a whole different topic. So let's get to the big news. The big news is I see, you're being quoted all over, not just in the, the Orca social media world and all the sites there are, and there's many of them, but also in the general news, Newsweek, and all these different, news sources are talking about this pilot whale calf that was apparently, I won't say adopted, that's the wrong word, I'll let you say the right word, but was swimming next to a female killer whale, and in a friendly manner, and in a way that the whale was caring for it. So I guess I'll just let you tell that story. Let you say that story. How did that unfold?
Yeah, so that was an observation that we had in summer 2021, a very, very unexpected observation. We were on a normal whale watching tour out with the boat here in West Iceland on a Snæfellsnes Peninsula, along the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. And we had a killer whale sighting, and we took photo ID, and then we noticed this tiny calf. And I was on the top deck, I was, collecting the data and taking the pictures. And when I came down, my crew said, wow, this is the tiniest killer whale calf we have ever seen. And I was like, oh, but it's not a killer whale calf, it's a pilot whale calf. And, it's this moment where you see something, but you think it cannot be true, but your eyes are seeing it, And we looked at the pictures and we could confirm that it was a pilot whale calf. And so, yeah, it was quite extraordinary. But the thing is also, we watched this interaction for about 20 minutes, and we have no idea how it came to pass that the pilot whale calf was with the orca female, and we also don't know what happened afterwards. Yeah. So the female that we call Sidis, she was sighted again afterwards without the pilot whale calf, and she was also seen 1 year later, last year in summer, in interaction again with pilot whale groups.
Right.
And so yeah, it is quite interesting. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of discussion about it. We do not know for sure what it means. We do know that the female did show caregiving behavior to the pilot whale calf, because she had the pilot whale calf in the echelon position, which is basically tucked behind the pectoral fin. And so this is what the orcas would also do with their orca calves. It's a form of infant carrying behavior, aquatic infant carrying behavior, where the calf is carried by the pressure wave of the female, and so has to make less movements and has to do less effort during high speed travel or during swimming in general. And so what we could read out of that is that she was caregiving towards the calf, but it's really hard to make any conclusion whether this was an adoption or whether the pilot whale calf was lost or orphaned and they found it, or if it was actually taken from the pilot whale group, from the pod that it belonged to. So this is all like really, really hard to tell. We just need more observations of this kind of behavior.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a mystery, and there's, like I say, there's lots of speculation, and it's not a totally isolated situation. There's been other cetaceans that have also adopted, for lack of a better term, and had the what's called alloparenting position. But and this calf in this case didn't look real healthy, and it was malnourished in some degree. Is that right?
Yes, it was a newborn calf. Also, you could still see the fetal folds on the body, and yeah, you could see what we usually call the peanut head when it's very emaciated. Yeah, there's no blubber behind that. And so, yeah, we could see that it was in very poor body condition. And I mean, there can also be speculation about, whether the female was lactating at the time and whether she would have been able to nurse the pilot whale calf, but we don't think so because of that body condition that it was in, and also because we have never seen that female with her own calf before. We never record her with offspring before, and the time frame that we have seen her in, like before, we didn't see her with a calf, so it was very unlikely that at that time she had maybe lost a calf and was lactating. But it's not a theory that is very possible, I think.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and there was also some speculation, because I know there's there's been predation from killer whales to pilot whales in other parts of the world, but that was clearly not this case. It wasn't a case of this calf being prey in any way. It was being cared for, but it also brings up the issue about this conflict, or whatever it was be called, between the pilot whales and the orcas. And the pilot whales, I think last June when we talked, you talked about some observations of pilot whales chasing killer whales, and the killer whales are very fast, so they could get away pretty easily. Didn't want to turn and confront the pilot whales for obvious reasons. Why do a battle you don't have to do? But I say obvious reasons. I don't know what the reasons were. But this is also in that same category of mystery, because it's not known why the pilot whales are being aggressive sometimes, and then other times they're not aggressive at all. And there's other times where the orcas will show aggressive behavior toward the pilot whales. It's just it's another mystery.
We haven't really recorded the orcas showing aggressive behavior towards the pilot whales here in West Iceland. So there are, I think, a couple of accounts from the past where this has been recorded, but it's been a long time ago. And so when we see it here, it is usually the pilot whales coming into the area high speed, and the killer whales either going for a very long dive and coming up somewhere far away and keeping a very low profile to go away from the area, often going closer to shore, or it can also end up in a high speed chase where the pilot whales are really chasing the killer whales for a certain amount of time.
Go ahead.
And so in the case last year, when we seen the female again that had the pilot whale calf, Sidis, when we saw her again, we saw some interaction with another group of pilot whales. So she was then in a group of killer whales, and they were at first chased by the pilot whales, and then when the pilot whales would stop, the killer whales would slowly turn back towards them, and so would kind of try to go slowly towards them. And then the pilot whales would start chasing them again, so they would go away again. And then the whole thing would repeat itself. So it repeated itself 3 times during our observation. And that's different from what we have seen before, where the killer whales they would not make an attempt to go anywhere closer to the pilot whales again.
Right.
And so we don't know if this is, one of the theories is, again, that the female Sidis said she was maybe trying to obtain another pilot whale calf. There were pilot whale calves in that group. But it's just a theory. It's really hard to tell, but it's definitely something that we haven't recorded like this before. So
it's so interesting. And I think pilot whales and killer whales are both called blackfish in some circles, and I think aren't pilot whales like the second largest of the dolphin family? So they're not as large as orcas, obviously, but they're good size species. And in my memory too, the pilot whales are in larger numbers in these situations. There's more pilot whales and
so it could also be, strength in numbers that the pilot whales have. We sometimes see pilot whales mixed with white-beaked dolphins also. And this one event we had one white-beaked dolphin in the group of pilot whales when they were starting to chase the killer whales. We don't know how that came to pass. That white-beaked dolphin wasn't seen again afterwards. But the pilot whales are usually in much larger numbers than the killer whales, even though also when this interaction happens, there can be 2 or 3 or 4 pods of killer whales that then come together and they group up, and then they go away in a travel line away from the pilot whales. But it could also have something to do, or probably is likely that it could also have something to do with acoustics, because the pilot whales, they are also very, very loud. And so that's also another thing that we have to look into in the future, how this actually comes into play there too.
Yeah, the acoustic angle, I read someplace that the pilot whales have learned how to, is it mimic or vocalize in a way that is similar to an orca? Is that true, or is that what I read about that?
Not heard about that.
Okay,
I don't know.
I don't know what I'll retract the comment. I don't know exactly what I read about that, but it was something. So wow, it's just very interesting. I guess it's almost like a bunch of teenagers chasing some adults. If there's a whole bunch of them, the adults are going to take off. They're not gonna try to mess with a bunch of large numbers of whatever being aggressive. So again, coming back to this last season, what were the big takeaways this season for you in terms of new data you were able to capture and new identifications of orcas, those kinds of things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in 2022, we had ID catalog out at the beginning of the year, which had 987 individuals. But at the end of the year, we already had several groups more. So we are now unofficially over 1,000 individuals in identification. And yeah, we are having also this season, we are seeing more unknown individuals again. So it's a never-ending story, it seems, at the moment, which is great. It's great to know that there are so many different ones. Our season has now just started again, 15th of February. We are running until beginning of October this year. So there's lots that we're still going to hopefully see. At the moment, we have a lot of killer whale sightings. It is our main season for killer whales between February and May, beginning of June. And then killer whale sightings get gradually less until the beginning of August, when they usually are not seen anymore after beginning, middle of August. And we are right in the middle of the killer whale soup, if you want to say so. Today we had about 80 individuals that we were recording. And it's just great. There's a lot of herring at the peninsula right now. They are mainly here herring feeders. They do the carousel feeding technique to hunt the herring. And yes, it's great to see that there's so much life out there at the moment.
That's interesting. So I know too that we talked before that there's a temptation by people that follow the Pacific Northwest to think about resident whales versus the bigs or the mammal-eating whales. And it's not the same in the North Atlantic. That the North Atlantic, you certainly have orcas that feed on herring, like they do salmon in the Pacific Northwest. But there's more. I guess in some cases, some groups will feed on fish or mammals depending on what's available. Is that true?
Yes, we have recorded groups that have been seen feeding on both, especially also the killer whales that go between Iceland and Scotland. Right. So they would feed on herring in Iceland and they would feed on seals in Scotland. So they do switch between fish and marine mammals. We've also seen that within Icelandic waters that certain groups can switch between fish and marine mammals. So it's not a resident transient thing here at all. We don't have that kind of distinction.
I remember talking to Steve Truelock about that in Scotland. I know you know him, and is that you guys communicate fairly often about when the Iceland orcas are down in Scotland and feeding on mammals? You are aware of that. And how do you share information and data about that with Steve and people in Scotland?
Anything via email, via Facebook. We have certain groups. So usually, just we give them a heads up when we have seen them before we make an announcement, and it's but this year we haven't seen them yet. I'm still waiting to see some of the Scottish ones. But yeah.
Well, you saw the Norway one, and and again, my memory is not great sometimes, but it seems to me the Norway season is winter, and the orca season in Norway is just finished. So it's kind of interesting that if it's finished there, and now those whales have come back over to Iceland, is that your understanding too, that the season up there is somewhat
No, I think they can be seen in Norway also during the summer, but further south, if I remember correctly. The whale watching season is more in the north in the winter, but I think they can be seen in other areas. You just have to search for them more. So I don't think it's a very reliable whale watching that they can do for orcas during the summer months. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Because what I'm thinking about is Arctic Norway and the expeditions they have there, and they have a lot of wonderful underwater photography. And of course, there's some controversy about that too, but we won't have to talk about that. But that's right. It's the Arctic that's the winter season there, and there's I guess not just Scotland, but there's occasionally a few whales even seen off the England and even Ireland coast. I think John Coe, for example, has been seen off the Irish coast, but I don't. Has John Coe's never visited Iceland that I'm aware of?
No, John Coe is part of the West Coast community,
Right.
which is I think they are thought to stay in UK waters, whereas the Northern Isles community are the ones that have certain individuals that have been matched to Iceland.
Yeah,
So,
I think John Coe and I think Aquarius. I think they're down to 2 that are the West Coast community, maybe a few more than that. So of the ones that you're most, the Iceland orcas that you identify and see most often, what are I think we talked before, a couple of the names that you've given, some of those whales that you see most often and are kind of, I don't know, more popular, or you enjoy seeing more than others, or are there a few of them out there these you kind of connect with more?
yeah, I guess so, but you should love them all equally,
I know, that's like your children. You can't have a favorite child.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind
But
of
there probably are a couple that are easier to identify, at least that part of it.
yes, and that there are some that I had, let's say, some special moments with, because in the early years when I started here, 2014, 2015, the orcas used to go under a nearby bridge into a fjord where there was a herring further in the fjord.
Wow.
And I would sit at that bridge sometimes up to 12 hours or so and watch them. And some of them would come really close. And of course, that's quite a special moment when you're sitting, in ice in the middle of nowhere, as the only person watching orcas. And yeah, so there are some that I have seen every year since then, and they have a special place in my heart. Let's say it like that.
Yeah, sure they would. I'm sure they would. And I mean, they're pretty smart and they have a good vision. They can see you, correct, when you're doing that?
When I'm on the bridge, yeah, I think so. I mean, sometimes they went under the bridge and they would be spy hopping also if there were more people on the bridge and looking. Right. And so, yeah, well, I'm sure they were looking at people too.
Well, I think maybe they're glad to see Marie out there again. They're probably, you might have more connection than that's the kind of thing we don't know yet. But
yeah, we don't know that.
It certainly is possible. Yeah, it'd be a nice thought. It's a nice thought to have that they recognize you back and like to say hello back to you. What else was I going to ask you about? I'm trying to remember from last time So you're out. I think you said you were out today on the boat for 9 hours, a pretty long time. What were the conditions like today?
Yeah, today was actually quite cold. So we had, I think, -9 with the wind chill or something, and that's quite a colder day for us, and -9 degrees Celsius. And so we usually have more mild winters here around 0 degrees, and so that is quite a cold day. And yeah, I mean, I'm on the top deck for 3 hours during the tour, and yeah, you got to love the cold, otherwise it's not a job for you, for sure.
Well, we have to have the right apparel, obviously. You have all that. Hopefully you're not shivering. You're maintaining your body heat.
No, I hardly ever get cold, so
yeah,
it's okay.
That's good. You're used to it. In California, we had huge snow here for the first time in 30 years, and all of a sudden the West Coast and the States has just been really cold. And I think I guess Europe has been the same. Anyway, it's unusual weather. So. I lost my thought. I was going to ask you. Oh, so you were out today, but you were out on a boat, and there were some tourists as well. There's people that are visitors that are on the boat too.
Yes, so it's a whale watching boat. We collect the data from the whale watch, and at the same time I'm also the spotter with the whale watching company here called Lauki Tours, which is the only whale watching company at the peninsula. And yeah, I've worked for them since 2014. And it's quite nice because I go out on the trips, I work with the company, but at the same time I can also collect the data from the top deck, which I can then analyze during the season break, which is between November and January each year.
So I guess I'm a little surprised that I guess there's hardy people that want to go out in the cold and have these whale watching trips. I would think they would slow down in the cold weather in the winter a little bit.
Yeah, but it's our main orca season and people know that. So it's quite famous for orca sightings in Europe. It's one of the probably best orca, sightings, a place to see orcas. And yeah, people that come to these trips are often really wildlife enthusiasts, outdoor people. In the summer, we get a lot more people that have never seen a whale before. They have a different attitude. But in the winter, it's often the people that are really into watching orcas and have been seeing orcas at different parts of the world. So they come here just for that.
Sure. So I guess maybe that kind of answers my question, is that you've had recent sightings of orcas. So the whale watching group would announce or make public that there are orcas out there for them to see, as opposed to, say, 2 weeks ago when there weren't any. Were you still going out and looking, or if there's no orcas, it seems like if there's no orca sightings, then you're going to get less people that want to go on a whale watching trip.
Yeah, I mean, in the winter maybe, but as I said, in the summer we have more also mainstream tourism, and we do have lots of other whale species in the area usually that we can look at. So right now we still also have humpback whales, we have white-beaked dolphins. If we can get out into deep water, there's likely to be sperm whales there. In the summer we have the pilot whales, minke whales. Yeah, so we have quite a few options also if we don't see orcas.
Sure. Well, if I get there, I'm going to be there in the summer. I think the winter sounds.
And you're not likely to see any orcas,
Oh, well, I'll never forget it then. I'll have to come in the winter and bundle up. Sammy, do you have any ideas of what one of our viewers might want to ask?
Not at the moment. I'm still kind of thinking.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of, we're always interested in our
Let me
viewers.
put on some light because it's really dark right now. I'm just gonna put on the light.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I want to ask earlier about the.
Oh, that's very bright, isn't it?
What was that, Sammy?
Previously, I wanted to ask more about the killer and pilot whales, kind of how they go together and kind of how they separate and why they're kind of differentiated. But Mary kind of went in detail about it, so kind of answered the question.
So what's your question now?
So
you have another question on this?
Yeah. So like the differences between the killer and pilot whales, like how do they get along, and when do they go their separate ways in a way? Does that make sense?
Well, we see orcas and pilot whales separately quite often along the peninsula, and we only see them interact really in the summer months, so July and August, which is kind of the time when the sightings overlap, because the killer whale sightings would be until end of July, beginning of August, but the pilot whale sightings would just kind of be starting in July and they can go all the way into September. So kind of July, August is where the presence of the both species overlaps. And so this is why we can see interactions then also more often. And so there aren't so many places around Iceland where you have that. So actually only one of the other places is in the south at the Westman Islands, where you also get killer whales and pilot whales seasonally together. Otherwise, this is not easy to observe because they're not usually in the same area.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I found it odd, like where they do interact some places. So that was kind of interesting. Yeah,
and we also don't know if it has anything to do with their prey sources. So there's very little known about what pilot whales in Iceland prey on. And so, if there's some food competition going on, that could be one of the theories why they are having these more aggressive interactions. But yeah, it's we just need more data on this. So we just need to have more summers where we see more interactions. And we often, when we see that, because again, we are on a public whale watching tour and we are very limited in time, we can't just stay out there for 6-7 hours in one go. We have to bring the tourists back to land at some point. And so if there's something exciting happening, unfortunately, sometimes we have to leave the area, even though it would be really, really interesting to record that. But that's the nature of whale watching. I'm not complaining because I get to do this almost all year round. So that's fine. But yeah, I'm just saying we often also come to the area when there is already an interaction going on, or the interaction has just, it's just about to finish or something like that. So often we don't know how things start or how things end. So we often just get a little part of what's going on. We get to see that. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that the feeding pattern, the predation of the two species. I know both species have fish eating, and they probably both eat the herring. I'm not aware that pilot whales do the carouseling like the orcas do. Is that
No?
No, they don't. That's not.
We
So.
don't know what the prey is for pilot whales in Iceland, really.
Oh, really?
Not
That's
very
interesting.
well known. We once got the picture of a pilot whale that brought up a mackerel, but it's the only time we've really seen them with some prey. And yeah, we don't know if the pilot whales would feed on similar food sources as the orcas. So that's one of the mysteries we have.
I think globally, I've read that pilot whales feed, obviously they sometimes feed on fish, but they also sometimes feed on small mammals like small dolphins. But that's globally. So
yeah, and it can be different between populations, so we don't really know.
Yeah. And you're primarily talking about the longfin pilot whales.
Yes, we only get longfin pilot whales in Iceland. Yes.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, because it seems like a food source would be that would be a reason why they would be located in the same area. And if they're, I know that's one of the speculations, like you just said, that they could be competing, and maybe that's part of the conflict they have. It's about food. It's possible.
It's a possibility, yes, for sure.
Yeah. So see, we're in early March, I guess now, and when did your summer season? When does your summer season begin? Is it a few months away still?
Well, yeah, I would say so. I mean, summer you can count kind of from middle of May, beginning of June. You can count that as the start of summer.
Okay.
We probably get like 3 days of spring here. That we have 3 months of summer where it gets up to maybe 17 degrees Celsius if we're lucky. And then after that, it's go back to winter. So most of the time, it's rather cold here.
Especially this winter, it's extra cold. Of course, you never know. It might have a warm streak after a bit. Of course, you're getting a lot more light, and I guess more light. You get so much daylight where you are. You're so far north that by May you're getting a lot of light. It doesn't get dark till pretty till.
Yeah, I mean, in June we sometimes have the sun only set for 2 minutes until it comes up again.
So you're right.
Light
on the Arctic
the whole
Circle.
night. Yeah, we have midsummer night, and yeah.
Well, that that's more than a 9-hour day. That's a 24-hour day. Yeah, you probably have your longest days in the summertime.
Yeah, you need very good blinds on your windows that make it dark, so you can simulate that you can have some night and sleep.
Yeah. Well, I think we've got about 40 minutes or so, and maybe we can wrap this one up and look forward to the next one. Every year we have the Global Orca Week in June. It's the third week in June in collaboration with Global Orca Month, which is put on by the Orca Network in the Pacific Northwest. And we would certainly like to try to get a little of your time for that event like we did last year. But let's go ahead and have Sammy stop the recording here. And if you'd stay on for a little longer, we can have a little further chat. And I want to thank you again for having the time to talk with us and give us some good information and pique our interest for what's going to happen next. So
thank you. I enjoyed it too.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marie.